Okay, so before we start, I just want to get a sense of how do you look for work? We know that a number of you look obviously online, so maybe you can mention some platforms that you use online, or are there any other ways that you look for work? Feel free to type. I'll give you a few moments to type in your responses. Okay, so Gayatri mentioned LinkedIn. Perfect. Indeed. Yes, those are the common ones. Okay, so a lot of these job search engines, LinkedIn, Indeed, Monster, Glassdoor, LinkedIn. Okay, perfect. Somebody has says mutual contacts, Workopolis, through friends. Great. So that's good. So we have a few responses in there. And yes, so utilizing the online, so we're going to talk about utilizing online and also other means like your friends and through your contacts. How do you go about doing that? Okay, so there's the company websites, job search engines, recruitment services, networking, LinkedIn, and other social media platforms, informational interviews, and then there's the old-fashioned method of looking at the classified or job ads in the newspaper. Okay, so these are traditionally the ways that we, or nowadays, the ways that we look for work. And for some of these things, we'll go into more detail. Okay, so how do you prepare yourself to effectively job search? So number one so we have 5 steps here. Number one, you need to target your job search. So you need to understand what type of work you're looking for. Number 2, understand the job market. Number 3, research potential employers. Number 4, prepare your job search toolkit. And number 5, contact employers. And we will go into more detail for each one of these steps. Okay, can you hear me now? I think Marie had some issues with the sound. Okay. Is there anybody else having problems seeing the PowerPoint presentation? Or is it okay for most people can see it? If it's only Sumitra, then Zain will assist you. Okay. I'm just waiting for a few people to respond. Okay. Okay, so it works fine for everybody. Sumitra, please correspond with Zain to assist you, so he can assist you. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so step 1, targeting your job search. Okay, so it's important to focus on the job that you want. So in order to have an effective job search strategy, you need to be more focused. I know as newcomers to Canada, sometimes it can be very difficult to do so. So, maybe getting a position at the same level of your field is not possible at the moment. Maybe there's some extra certifications or qualifications that you need to do in order to get to that type of position. That's fine. So once you've identified that, then you should focus on the types of jobs that are realistic for you. You don't want to be scattered. So you don't want to say, okay, I'm a newcomer, I just want any job just to get my foot in the door. No, in most cases, it's best that you focus, you do an assessment of what the job market is like, and you focus on where you can, where your skills and qualifications, what type of jobs would suit your skills and qualifications best. Okay, so it's best to be focused and not to panic and say that you will do anything and everything. Okay, So in some cases, maybe if you're in a regulated profession, it might take longer for you to get work, and you may need to take what we call a survival job. That's fine. So, but just also with the survival jobs, just focus on what kind of survival jobs are realistic for you. Okay, some people say, okay, I'm willing to do warehousing or manufacturing. If that's not realistic for you, then don't focus on those types. Focus on the type of survival jobs that are realistic. Okay, and we mentioned again to target the occupational areas that best fit your skills and experience. Okay, so number 2 is understanding the job market, and there's a number of resources that you can use to help you understand what the job market is like here in Canada or in the GTA if you're in Toronto or in Ontario. Okay, so for example, there's the Government of Canada and the Government of Ontario have websites like the Job Bank and Ontario Job Futures that can provide you with some overall labor market information about your specific occupation. So you would have to do some research on what the NOC code is for your specific occupation. Once you understand what the NOC code is, then you can search the labor market information there. On Ontario Job Futures, they also give you an idea of where the types of jobs are concentrated in Ontario, and if there's any associations or certifications that are required for the type of job that you do, they will also list it there. So those are good resources to have to understand the job market. In addition, another good place to look is professional associations and sector councils. So sector councils are basically each industry or many industries have a council where it's a collaboration of companies, certification bodies, professional associations, and other stakeholders to promote certain standards or the sector. Now, a lot of sector councils, they have a wealth of information there, and certain sector councils also have resources or programming specifically for newcomers. So in some professions, sector councils are also a good resource to have. For example, there's the mining industry human resources sector council. Sometimes they organize job fairs just for internationally trained professionals. They have mentoring opportunities. There's BioTalent Canada, which used to have an internship program for internationally trained professionals. There was also the Food Processing Sector Council. They used to have a free pre-arrival certification program for newcomers. It's now subsidized. It's no longer free. So again, the sector councils are a great resource for labor market information, keeping up to date with the industry standards. Okay. Another way to find out more information about the job market is through informational interviews, and we'll go into informational interviews in more detail, so I won't dwell in that. It's basically interviewing people in your field, specifically in the type of role that you're looking for. Okay. Studying the job postings as well is a good way of understanding the market. So for example, if you want to find out what kind of qualifications are necessary or in demand, just comparing the job posting is also a good way to understand the job market. And finally, also understanding the hiring processes of targeted companies. So if you have very specific companies in mind, like you want to work for certain banks, you want to work for the Big Four companies, there's just maybe even online doing some search through Glassdoor, or if you have an opportunity to speak with somebody who works in those companies, then it's a good idea just to be a little bit more prepared. and it will help you strategize how to get into those companies as well. Okay, because sometimes those companies might hire internal staff first or referrals. So you want to understand what the hiring processes are of those target companies. Okay, so in addition to what I just mentioned, you also need to understand, and I'm sure many of you have heard of this before, so there's a visible job market. These are the opportunities that are posted online through the job search engines, through LinkedIn. But then there's also something called the hidden job market. Okay. So these positions are positions that are not posted or advertised online. And you can't find them on job search engines. So I just want to get a sense of why would certain positions be hidden. So if I'll give a few moments for individuals to type their responses in the chat pod. Okay, so there's a few of you that are typing. I'm just going to wait for some responses to pop up. Just while people are typing, for Mary, I forgot to mention earlier that if you are participating in this webinar through your phone, it may not work best. It's best to enter this webinar on a desktop as opposed to a phone. So I'm not sure if that's your case. Okay. Okay, perfect. So there's some responses here. There are internal job posting for employee referrals. Good. The business may depend on referrals, 100% on referrals. Companies post positions internally first, then post it for the public. Okay. Again, referrals. Okay, so there's a few more people typing. So there's a question here, does it happen that even if the position is filled internally and then posted for the public? It does happen. It does happen that they post it to the public, but they're giving preference to internal candidates first. So that's the case. You'll find that to be very common. Okay. Okay, excellent. So hidden because the preference of sourcing strategies, referrals, etc. Yes, so a lot of you have the idea that, yes, a lot of companies prefer, it's not for everybody, not all companies, but many of them prefer referrals. Or if they already have the talent, if they're a bigger organization and they already have, internal staff that have the talent, they would prefer to hire they'll give the preference to internal staff before they go externally. Sometimes the decision has been made for some positions that are posted online, but maybe they just want to test and see what kind of talent they will get as well. Okay, so sometimes for some organizations, just the process to advertise online on those major job search engines and LinkedIn is too expensive. Again, companies may want to keep the hiring process confidential due to new changes within the company. Employers, as many of you mentioned, rely on current employees to refer qualified candidates. Employers also utilize, they may just prefer to work with recruitment firms. And so the recruitment firms might have a heads up on certain positions that haven't been posted on those job search engine. So they may rely solely on headhunters or recruiters to find candidates, which will save, and the advantage of that is that it just saves them time. Okay. So those are just some of the reasons why positions may not be posted. Okay, so the question is, so if there are, we don't know the exact, I'm sure you heard this percentage of 80% of jobs are hidden. There's no hard facts on how many of them are, what percentage of the jobs are hidden. But you can count on, even from your own personal experience, from your own, companies, even if it's not in Canada, what their hiring processes were like. I'm sure that you've also witnessed that a lot of it depends on, referrals as well, as you can see from your responses. So how do you access the hidden job market? And we'll discuss that in more detail throughout this session. Okay. So step 3 is to create your job search toolkit. So before you go out there job searching, so there are certain things that you need to have on hand before you start your job search full on. Okay. We will talk about, I see there's some discussion here about cold calls, informational interviews, so we will talk about that in more detail. Okay, so in your job search toolkit, there's of course your resume and your cover letter, so you need to ensure that you have a good resume and cover letter, and that's something that our program can assist you with. Networking cards are useful to have if you're going to be attending formal networking events. So you don't want to be carrying around your resume, so you may just want to have a networking card with your key skills on it and your contact information. We do have some samples or some pictures in the resource section of this webinar, which you can access later. Another thing that you can do to prepare yourself is what is called an elevator pitch. Again, this is useful if you're going to formal networking events. So basically the elevator pitch is just a summarization of your professional background, what key skills you have to offer, and what is your goal. Okay, so it's something, it would be very similar to answering the tell me about yourself question in an interview, in a job interview. So the elevator pitch is structured in the same way. It should be very succinct and to the point of what your qualifications are and what you are seeking, what you're looking at for. Finally, you also want to update your LinkedIn account and other social media platforms. So you just want to ensure that your LinkedIn account corresponds with your resume. There's no conflict. If you've landed in Canada, or if you're actively searching for opportunities, you may want to identify that too on your LinkedIn account. And with regards to your other social media, you just want to ensure that your Facebook and other social media shows off a professional image. Job search tracking system. So we recommend that you have some kind of system to track the positions that you have applied for, so that when you are called for an interview, you're in a better position to answer the questions or to prepare yourself for that interview. So how you decide to do that, it depends on your style. Some people have an Excel spreadsheet where they just have a job search log. The way that I did it when I was job searching was I just basically created a folder with files for each position that I applied to. I wasn't applying to hundreds of positions. I had a very targeted job search, so that system worked for me. I don't know if any of you have a system. If you have a system for tracking your job search, please feel free to share it in the chat pod. And finally, it's also a good idea to have some kind of support with your job search. So job searching online or job searching can be very isolating and frustrating. So get some support with your job search. You don't have to do it alone. So you can do it through formal programs like this one or other employment services. So you can have a counselor, an employment counselor supporting you with your job search. Some people have made a network with other job seekers. I know that individuals who've attended programs, in-person programs, have met other internationally trained professionals who are looking for work, and they formed a WhatsApp group just to support themselves. So just have some kind of support network when you're job searching where they can give you tips and advice on how to go about it. Okay. Okay, so step number 4, research and identify potential employers. Okay, and how do you go about doing that? So again, networking, which we'll go into more detail, career fairs you can attend. Again, how do you find out about career fairs? Usually through, if you're registered with employment services, they will email you career fairs that they are organizing. Eventbrite is a great place to find information about career fairs, sometimes also the sector councils. Information interviews, volunteering co-op internships, social media, and associations and memberships. And again, we'll talk about those shortly. Okay, so networking. So what is networking? So networking is to build and establish a group of individuals who are within the same field or have the same interest and work within your sector, ideally. So networking for our purposes. Okay, so your network, again, can be friends, colleagues, acquaintances, and it's for the purpose of obtaining information, referrals, and ongoing support during the job hunting process. And it's important to remember that networking, a lot of us, when we think of networking, it's very intimidating. You imagine, schmoozing with the big shots at a cocktail party or something like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Many of us are already networking without even knowing it. Which brings us to the next slide. Okay, so we're actually networking informally. Maybe some of you can give us an idea of how you are already networking informally. So I'm going to give a few moments for you to type in your responses. How do we network informally? Okay, so I'm just waiting for some people. Okay, yes, friends of friends, perfect. That's something that we often recommend too, via LinkedIn introductions. Informal networking through friends and family. Having a LinkedIn account, yeah, it's sort of like if you just have the account as a passive way of networking, but you could be more active on LinkedIn. Okay, so just waiting for a couple more people to respond and then okay, so LinkedIn networking is tricky. Often HR professionals do not respond. Okay, we will talk about LinkedIn networking in a bit, how to go about approaching it. So you don't necessarily need to contact just the HR professionals. You can network on LinkedIn with other individuals, not necessarily the HR professionals. Okay. Okay, so many of you already said so through your friends or your friends' friends. Family is a great way. Co-workers or former co-workers. Many of you have worked, like I've come across many clients who have former co-workers or colleagues who've immigrated to Canada. So they're often a great source for networking as well. Through classmates or alumni associations. You know, there are some universities, even if you've had gone to university abroad, you might find an alumni association for that university here. Sometimes they're, depending on the university, they could be pretty active. So I've seen barbecues of alumni associations of universities from other countries, and then they just decided to gather and form a networking group. Okay. Neighbors are a great source of networking. I'll give you an example. The concierge at the condominium that I live in, he was also a newcomer to Canada. And then just through talking with the residents there or with the neighbors, he managed to find employment in his field. And it was through a referral from one of the residents in the building. So you never know where your opportunities will come. Okay, and religious groups. So if you attend church or mosque or whatever it is, or any other spiritual or religious association, that's an excellent way of networking as well. I don't know if any of you have any experiences of networking informally that has resulted in something, or at least resulted in a lead. Please feel free to share with others. We'd be happy to hear your experience. Okay. Then there's also there's the informal networking, which is easier, and then there's also formal networking. So some of you mentioned formal networking via LinkedIn. What are other ways that we can network formally? Okay. So there's specific networking events, perfect meetup groups. Meetup groups are a great way to network professionally. I would recommend that everybody, just look up and see if there's a professional meetup group. There's often, events on that will just help you keep up with the industry trends, or even professional development seminars that are posted on Meetup. There's mentoring. So we'll talk a little bit. There's mentoring programs specifically for internationally trained professionals. There's also professional immigrant networks as well that you can contact for mentoring opportunities and networking opportunities. And then there's also the professional associations or organizations. So if there's a licensing body or professional association, sometimes they will also host events where you can meet other people in your field. Okay. So ways to expand your network. So don't downplay. So a lot of us, when we think of networking, we're thinking of the formal ways of networking, going to these networking events, etc. But don't downplay social gatherings or things that you can do for fun. So when you go to Meetup, you don't necessarily have to go to a professional meetup. Let's say you enjoy hiking, or you enjoy canoeing, or you enjoy doing things outdoors. Join a Meetup group, you'll meet other individuals, and that's a really good way of informal networking. So I can give you some examples of attending social gatherings that I know of that have resulted in in meeting or in a lead. So for example, I a few years ago, just for fun, because I was interested in it, I took a beekeeping course. And in the process of the beekeeping course, I got to know several individuals, and one particular individual worked for the mining industry here. She worked in Toronto, and at that time I happened to have a client who was in the mining industry. So then through chatting with her, I managed to find key information and insights from somebody already in the field working in Toronto in the mining industry about how this individual, how my client can go about networking, and some insights that would assist them. So yeah, don't downplay social gatherings. They can actually be very helpful. Also, if you individuals joke around that if you want to expand your network, get a dog. You'll find the dog walkers form their own network in the parks, and it's also a great way to get to know other people. Or if you have children, through the school, your children's school, meeting other parents, being active in the school is a really good way of getting to know and expanding your network. I found that to be the case for me when my children, I used to go to drop-in or parenting groups, and also through when my son entered kindergarten, I found that to be the case where I just met so many other different professionals and found information that was really useful to me through volunteering at my son's school. Updating your social media outlets. So again, just being active on social media can help you expand your network. Joining a job search workshop or other employment-related events. So for example, at our center here, at the Center for Education and Training, we have job search workshops. And then there's also specific job search workshops. For example, we have one for accountants. Just through attending that's a good way of meeting other individuals who are in the same field searching for work. And then there are individuals who manage to find work on their own or through the program who can assist you as well. So just getting out there, joining a job search workshop or other employment workshops, meeting other newcomers who are also searching for work can help you expand your network. Volunteering, so you don't necessarily need to volunteer for the company that you would like to work for, because that's not always a possibility, but perhaps you want to volunteer for an event, or as I mentioned earlier, if your children go to school, maybe volunteering at your children's school. Again, volunteering is a good way to meet other people and to expand your network. Okay, we discussed meetups, and mentoring we will discuss in more detail. And again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to type them. Okay, so informational interviews. So informational interviews is a great tool for you, one, to network, and two, to also find information about the labor market and about the company, if you have specific target companies, about the companies that you would like to work for. Okay, so the purpose, an informational interview is an informal conversation, and it's usually with somebody who's working in the area that's of interest to you. And it's very useful. If I have done it many times and have found the information to be very useful. It would have taken me so much time to find certain information if I had, on my own, if I hadn't done that information interview. Okay, so it's important to remember too that the purpose of an information interview is you're not asking for a job, but you're just getting information about a particular, about the work or about the area that you're interested in. Okay. So I'll give you an example. I was interested in starting a business at one point. So I just walked in one day to a similar business and just asked the individual, if they were the owner, and she said yes. And I told her what my business idea was and what I was seeking, and if I could get some information regarding starting a business. And she was very helpful. She said, yes, I can. So we booked a time to meet at a nearby cafe before she opened her business. And I told her I didn't want to take any more than 20 minutes of her time, but she ended up offering me an hour, an hour of her time. So she was very generous. And she gave me a wealth of information. She connected me with certain individuals that would help me source what I needed. She gave me information about certain resources and courses and certifications that would also help me. So sometimes you never know until you try. I honestly didn't expect to get a positive response, but she was more than open to helping me. It's just that she felt that she wished she had somebody guide her when she was starting the business. And so she wanted to give that, she was more than open to give that back. I also have another example too where I was interested in pursuing a different, I have a background in education and was also interested in pursuing opportunities in adult education. So one of my colleagues introduced me to somebody she knows that's working for the school board for an information interview just to find out more information. So I had a phone chat with her, and again, she gave me insights into the application process, the hiring processes, etc. So don't underestimate it, and if you're not successful at first, keep trying. So it's a good idea to, if you already have a network here, to start with your friends and family or people that you know to see if they can introduce you to an individual working in your field. If you don't know anybody, then try it via LinkedIn. So maybe you have certain target companies that you're interested in. Look at the employees in those companies and see who's working in your field. If you can find somebody from their LinkedIn profile that looks like they immigrated to Canada, try them first because they're more willing to help another newcomer to Canada than somebody who hasn't. Okay, so just some general rules for informational interviews. So if you're genuinely enthusiastic about something, so just assume, then more likely there will be individuals who would be open to helping you if you're genuine and enthusiastic about it. And if you're not putting pressure on them by asking about a job, you just want to seek information about the job. You also want to do some research ahead of time, so research the organization, the company, find out as much information online, because you don't want to waste the person's time by asking them information that you can find online. You want to ask them for insights that you can't find online. Again, it's okay to ask for, that's the purpose of an informational interview, to ask for advice about how you should go about your job search or how you should go about applying. Like if this is your target company, what's the best strategy to do so? If they have anybody else that you should be speaking to get information, maybe they're not the best person, but if they can refer you to somebody else, as was in my case when I wanted to start a business, this business owner referred me to other individuals that I should be speaking to. Okay, and always follow up by thanking the interviewer for their time. So you would send a thank you note afterwards In my case, for this business owner, I got a little token gift. I dropped by and gave her a token gift because she did spend a good amount of time with me. Okay, and if you can follow up, so if there are any developments with your job search, or if their information was great, or if you followed up with their referral, then you may want to let that individual know as well. Okay. So these are just some general rules for information interviews. Where can you ask? So we mentioned LinkedIn, family and friends. You can also approach sector councils and professional associations for information interviews. Maybe you can check their members or individuals who are on the board of directors, or just maybe even their information email, just to say that introducing yourself and you're looking for somebody in the field. That's happened once where, again, I had another individual in the mining industry a while back, and at that time she was the first geologist that I had to deal with. This was a while back, and I was like, okay, I don't know anybody in this field, so I reached out to the sector council, and they managed to connect her with a CEO in the field who was open to meeting with her over coffee. So again, there are diversify where you can source individuals for information interviews. Okay, so we have a question here. I'm curious to know what's allowed and what's not allowed with LinkedIn networking. For example, does one come across as aggressive, sending letters of interest or resumes for specific job vacancies to HR professionals? So are you talking about a specific, like a posting that has been advertised on LinkedIn or online, and then you go find the HR professional on LinkedIn and then follow up with them? No, I wouldn't see it as aggressive. It's just a matter of how you go about it. You can just mention specifically that I saw this posting online, and you don't necessarily have to give them your resume, but you could just mention that you applied for the position and you would be open, you'd be more than interested in an interview or learning more about the position. I hope that answered your question. If not, then please follow up. Okay. Okay, so that question was a good segue into using social media to find jobs. Okay, so many of you are already using LinkedIn actively for your job search. So you're applying for jobs through LinkedIn. You want to ensure that you have a good and up-to-date profile. So if you can get recommendations from your former supervisors or employees from your home countries, that would be great. It would be a good enhancement for your LinkedIn profile. Just ensure that their recommendation is professional as well. I've seen some recommendations that are not necessarily appropriate for the setting in Canada. So just ensure that the spelling, grammar, and the recommendation itself is appropriate. Okay. If there are certain employers that you are targeting, ensure that you are following them. Maybe there are some individuals, you can, if they posted things, you can like, or even better, just to comment on employer postings. Okay, just to keep you active and more noticed. Again, updating your profile, and ensure that your profile is pretty consistent with your resume. Okay, it's just that if you're sending your resume and it says one thing and your LinkedIn profile says something else, then that could be problematic. So you want to ensure that you have a consistency. Okay. Again, if you're a writer, you can also write articles or blogs. I've seen some, so outside of LinkedIn, I've had some clients who had their own professional blog about the industry. So they're really passionate about their industry and keeping abreast. So they would write blogs about their particular, updates and certain things that are trends in their industry. So if you're a writer, a blog can really help increase your profile. And you also want to connect with, source, do your research on recruiters who are recruiting in your field, and you want to be connecting with those. So there's the company talent acquisition staff that, maybe if you're working with larger companies or corporations, you want to connect with their talent acquisition staff. You also want to source recruiters from recruitment agencies that are sourcing or recruiting for your specific profession, which I'm sure many of you are doing right now. So we have one question here. Alex asks, how big of a disadvantage is it if we have a gap in our career before coming to Canada? And how could we mitigate it? This really depends on your circumstances. So if you have, before coming to Canada, if you have a gap, I don't know, could you fill it in with maybe you did some volunteer, or if you took time off, then that's fine too. Some people take sabbaticals. So, it's not, as long as you're able to explain it, then it's not that great of a disadvantage, so that, when you do get approached for an interview, then if you're able to explain it, then it's okay. Like some individuals have, they work in the US and they have visa problems, or, and then they have this, just due to circumstances beyond their control, they can't, they have a gap in their work. So I'm sorry, I'm answering it in vague terms. I would need to know the specifics, but we can talk about it maybe one-on-one if you would like. Any questions so far? So how do you connect with recruiters? Are you connecting with, so there's different ways that you can connect with recruiters. Again, you can connect with them via LinkedIn. So I would recommend, so some people, when you're applying to job postings, they're through a recruitment agencies and through a specific recruiter, so that you're applying with a recruitment agency that way, but you can be more proactive in that you are researching the recruitment agencies. And some recruitment agencies on their website, they have the name of their recruiters and what their specializations are. Sometimes from the job posting you can find that information as well. So I would recommend that you look at the LinkedIn profile or the website of the company to learn more about them. So then, how would you approach it? So you would let them know that you have your let's say a project management professional with 10 years of experience in managing, technical projects in this, and this. You just recently relocated to Toronto, and you would love to connect with them to actively search for positions that would match your profile. Okay, so you can do that via LinkedIn by in your LinkedIn connection message, or you can, if you find the email of the individual, you can email them that way. Sometimes they even have phone numbers that you can call and see if you can connect with them via phone, but probably LinkedIn and email would be best. Okay. And again, if there's any more questions, there will be some time after we finish this webinar to ask your questions. Okay, so volunteering as well is a great way to expand your network, as we mentioned earlier. There's two types of volunteering. One is that you can just volunteer and offer your skills and qualifications for a cause or an event, or again, let's say if you're part of a religious community or if you have children who go to school. So that's a good way to expand your network. And then there's also other types of volunteer opportunities where you can gain experience in your field, which we'll talk a little bit more. Those are co-op opportunities. So a good way to find, volunteer opportunities that are more in the social service sector is Charity Village. And then there's other websites as well. There's Volunteer Toronto as well that can help you find volunteer positions in the GTA. Now, sorry. So I mentioned volunteer. So if you're looking to volunteer or to gain experience in your particular area, or maybe with a particular company of your choice, or that you're targeting, co-op programs would be best for you. It's basically a structured volunteer opportunity. And where can you find these co-op programs? So in Toronto or in the GTA, there are a number of adult day schools who offer co-op programs. So they're high schools, they're secondary schools, but for individuals who are over, I believe, 20. And people attend these day schools for several reasons. So maybe they didn't complete high school, maybe they're changing careers and they need to earn certain credits in order to go into a university or college program. Or I know somebody who works for one of the co-op programs, and says that 70% of the students who attend the co-op programs at her school are newcomers, internationally trained graduates who want to gain experience in Canada in their fields. And these programs can actually help you with, so the person I know, she works specifically with engineers. She places engineers with a volunteer engineering opportunity. So it's supervised and it's structured. So the co-op instructor would be supervising this. It would usually be anywhere from 8 to 13 weeks of length. And it's a great way to gain experience and also to expand your network. So again, some schools have a general, so what they call like Canadian Experience Co-op program, or some of them offer more specific ones in accounting, where you can learn some key software like QuickBooks, Simply Accounting. In some cases, I'm not sure. There may be SAP as well for accounting purposes. So if you're interested in gaining experience, then the co-op would be the best program for you. So it's usually offered through adult day schools, and some newcomer programs also offer co-op, like the Newcomer Center of Peel in Mississauga. They offer co-op programs as well. Then there's internship programs. So many of you have probably heard of Career Edge. They offer mid-level internships for internationally trained professionals. They post their internships online. If you're interested in any of their internships, you would have to create an account with them, and then there's a and then I think there's a process, and then you would have access to applying for their positions internally. Then there's also another internship program. It's through the federal government, the federal internship program. This is only open to newcomers in Ontario and British Columbia, I believe, and they open it in March or April. So it's not open year-round. It's only open in the spring for a short period of time. And you would have to connect with one of the organizations that they list on their website in order to process your application. Okay, but it's also a good way to get, if you want to work for the government or the public sector, it's a good way to get in. I've heard that sometimes it takes a while to process the internship, but and the opportunity is there. In addition to the internships, there's other programs as well, and I'll mention it in bridging programs later. There's other programs where you can do placement opportunities, but I'll talk about it a little later. Okay. Mentoring. So mentoring is a good way to connect with individuals in your field and expand your network, and also find more insights that, like, let's say I can give you general information, but if you want industry specific advice, then it's good to register for a mentoring service. So TRIAC is the major mentoring service in the GTA. Other parts of other communities in Ontario may have their own mentoring service. But my recommendation, if you want to target a specific company or you need some industry specific advice, is to contact TRIAC if you're in the GTA and see which organization would be best for you to register to find a mentor in their field. The mentoring through TRIAC it depends. It may take time it really depends on their pool of mentors and how many mentees are waiting for a mentor in that field. So when you contact TRIAC, it would be a good idea just to get an idea of what the waiting period is. Okay. There are other mentoring opportunities. There's one through Canada InfoNet. They do online mentoring pre and post arrival. There's also another organization that was started by a newcomer. He just started. It's called Helping Other People Succeed. They also just started doing short-term mentoring opportunities that's very targeted and specific for people in certain fields. Bridging programs. So there are a number of programs that are, I'm almost finished this, so I just have two more after bridging programs, one more slide, and then we're finished. We'll go through the question and answers, and then we'll wrap up after that. So just quickly about bridging programs. So many of you may or may not be aware that there are a number of programs that are specifically for internationally trained professionals to help them find work in their field. So there may be certain, certifications or courses or certain technical skills that you need in order to be more employable in your field, and that's the purpose of the bridging programs. So this website here can help you find the bridging program in your field, and you're also welcome to connect with us, and we can advise you as to which bridging program is available in your field. Many bridging programs, there's a fee associated with it. However, if you are not working or don't have anybody in your family that's working, there is a bursary that's available. So a bursary is like a grant that you can apply for to offset or to offset the fee. So sometimes they will pay the full fee. The bursary will pay for the full fee of the bridging program, depending on the cost. So bridging programs are a good way because so they will give you the key skills and they will also connect you with the industry experts and mentoring opportunities. So what I was mentioning earlier, so in addition to bridging programs, there are other programs that are employment related. So for example, at the Center for Education and Training, we had a program that's called CETCAN. It's for internationally trained accountants and finance professionals. So the structure is, and it's a free program. So the structure of it is that you would, you're in 3 weeks in class, just preparing yourself. So it's like a pre-employment workshop where you're practicing interview, ensuring your resume is up to par, etc. You have somebody to guide you and coach you through that. And then there's a placement opportunity. So there's a 3-month paid placement opportunity. So there are programs like that available. So we had one at our organization, SETCAN. There's another organization that does it for all professionals, where there is somebody who will help you find a 3-month placement, and they provide incentives, like financial incentives to employers. So there's some available for internationally trained professionals. If you're still 30 and under, there's also some that are available for youth. Okay, finally, so once you've done all those, now you're ready to make contact with the employers. So how are you going to make contact with that? We've already discussed you can connect with them through LinkedIn, through cold calls, which I'll give an example, or information interviews. So if you've done an information interview, then maybe that individual can connect you with an employer. So I had a case where I was the education, where I was connected with somebody from the school board. They were open to connecting me with the principal as well. I wasn't ready at the time because I was just searching for information, but she said, you know, when you are ready, I can help connect you with the principal. So yeah, the information interviews, if you can get it, those would be great opportunities for you to connect with employers. One example for cold calls, I had one client who was a sonographer for, it was very specialized. It was like maybe for cardiology or something like that. So what she did is she did research to see which clinics had the sonography for her specialty area. So she created like an Excel spreadsheet, made a list, and then started cold calling each one of the clinics just to ask them about their hiring, you know, if they had, you know, introducing herself and what, if there were any opportunities and if she could submit her resume. And she ended up finding work that way because she was very diligent and very organized, but in her case, cold calls worked for her. It's not going to work for everybody, but she had a very specialized skill, and the cold calling worked for her. Okay, so so now that takes us, we've wrapped up the seminar. If anybody has any questions or questions, feel free to ask, and I will be happy to answer your questions. So I'll just give a few moments here to see if anybody has any questions. Okay, so a few people are typing. So Kitan has a question about how do you sign up for TRIAC mentoring? TRIAC, so you can do it through, you can go on the TRIAC website and you can see which organizations are associated with TRIAC, and you can see which organization is closest to you. And you would sign up through that organization for the mentoring. You may want to get in touch with TRIAC because some organizations have a greater pool of mentors in one specific field than others. So just go onto the TRIAC website and see which organizations are associated with them. Could you download these slides? Yes, you can download these slides. Zain will provide you with more information. Also, the recorded webinar will be uploaded on our website for if you would like to access it in the future. So Alex is asking, would there be specific lull in terms of hiring, especially around the winter? Yes, in general, yes, there are lull times. So in August, a lot of people take vacation. In just before the holiday season, like in December, it slows down a little bit because a lot of people are on vacation and then picks up again in January. Certain industries are cyclical, so just be aware of what the cycles are in particular industries. Okay, so I'm just waiting for one more person here to type their question. Okay, so we just have a few people typing their questions. Does PrepCan do recruiter events or connect you with recruiters? No, we don't do that. We can refer you to events or give you recruiters in your industry, and in some cases, some LinkedIn profiles of recruiters that you can connect with. But as of yet, no, we don't do recruiter events, but our umbrella organization, the Center for Training and Education, their employment services connects with certain companies or recruiters, and sometimes they have hiring fairs. Does PrepCan provide any informational interview service? Not formally. I have done it informally for some of my clients. Like if I know individuals in my network or former employees, then in some cases I have connected my clients for information interviews. So it's done informally on a case-by-case basis. Sumitra, most of the HR professionals I personally meet keep saying the same thing, apply online. I'm wondering if any strategy works with recruiters. So if you're not having any luck with the HR professionals, so again, maybe the HR professionals are not the best people in your case to connect with. Again, it depends on the company that you are targeting. So you want to look for the talent acquisition staff. So some companies have their own recruiters, their internal recruiters, to sort candidates for their pool. Okay. And then there's external recruiters who work for recruiting firms that employers hire to fill in vacancies in their companies. Okay, so maybe your strategy should be contacting the talent acquisition staff and then the external recruiters. And again, you can just mention, what your expertise is. If you just recently immigrated to Canada, just let them know that you're actively searching for opportunities in Canada. You may want to mention, in some cases, you may want to mention that you have permanent residency status when you're connecting with them, if it's not obvious, because recruiters do get individuals who are here on a temporary work permit, etc. And mention, that you would be happy to work with that recruiter to find appropriate work. And you can work with more than one recruiter, so you're not stuck with one recruiter. So be sure to connect with as many in your field. Sometimes there are you can find information about recruiters through websites like Glassdoor, or even forums like Red Flag or Quora. Sometimes individuals have tips on which recruiter worked best for them. Job sites in Canada which are good for searching. So it's the so you have the common general ones that everybody uses, like Indeed, Monster, Workopolis, LinkedIn, and then there are some industry-specific websites. So depending on your industry, there are some websites that you can also use to search. So, and again, if you're looking for so there's different types. There's Job Bank, and then there's like if you're looking for public sector work, you would apply through the government websites. Again, this is something that we do on a case-by-case basis, that we can give you some websites that would be good for you for your particular industry, in addition to the major search engines. Okay, Sumitra, I'm aiming for universities and research institutes. So there is a website that posts positions with a number of universities and research institutes, but you would also search on those university websites, or depending, and just see which institutes are affiliated with that university, and search on those institutes as well, for if you're looking for fellowships or post-fellowship opportunities. Okay. So feel free to keep asking questions, but before you go, I just would like, if you can please take a moment to fill in this survey. Okay, and again, we have some web links that you can, in the resources, we have some networking card templates, and then some other web links. If you have any other questions, you're welcome to stay on, but that, I guess, wraps up the presentation for today. But I will stay on for a few more moments to answer any other questions. So I would like to thank you for attending this webinar today. If you have any, if you're interested in our program, then here, this is the eligibility requirements. So you need to be a resident of Ontario, permanent resident of Convention refugee. And this is the link for you to register for our program. And again, we can provide you with feedback and insights on how to come up with your job search strategy, in addition to helping you with your resume and cover letter, as well as giving you resources that were mentioned here in general, but specific resources to help you. Okay. So thank you again for attending. It's been a pleasure. And again, I'll stay on for a few more moments to answer any other questions.